If you would like to support the podcast and get some extra content while you're there, head on over to patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast and sign up. From the rewatch to the Q&A, we will have loads of content every week. So sign up, patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast. And now, here's the podcast. Welcome everybody. It's episode 387 of the Severe MMA podcast. My name is Sean Sheehan, joined today by the Carlos Valerian of Irish Mixed Martial Arts Media, Graham McDonald, as we talk about a big weekend in the world of mixed martial arts. Lots of fights to talk about, lots of fights next week as well to talk about, and one or two other things as well. So we'll get into all of that. First, we must tell you that our friends at Manscaped are taking over Ireland just in time for the holidays. Their life-changing hygiene products are now in all Tesco retail stores. It's also time for fresh ball of fall. It's a season of pumpkin spice and making sure your crotch looks nice. That means sipping arters in the fall breeze and using Manscaped products to trim your balls with ease. Make sure to swing by and pick up their signature Lawnmower 4.0, the brilliant ball trimmer to bless the motherland. Join the 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by swinging by Tesco Ireland, or you can go to manscaped.com and get 20% off with free shipping using the promo code SevereMMA. As everyone knows at this stage, myself and Graham, Manscaped has been part of this podcast and part of our hygiene routine, I suppose, for a long time now. I actually I had the ear and nose hair trimmer, which we'll talk about here in a second. I completely lost it. I was like, where is it? I was cleaning the other day and I found it. I was like, it's absolutely brilliant. So yeah, definitely use one of them. But you heard it here first about Manscaped taking over Ireland. Whether you're brand new already, use Manscaped. You could use the crown jewel of care for your family jewels. That lawnmower I was talking about. Imagine shaving with a sleek, well-designed and optimized trimmer that makes shaving your favorite time in the bathroom. Men, you've only been shaving with the same nut trimmer on your if you've only been shaving with the same nut trimmer on your face, you've been doing it wrong. No person wants to end up with pubes in their mouth. The Lawnmower 4.0 features advanced skin safe technology. Just you think I'd know by now? To protect your delicate parts. It's also waterproof, so you can keep escaping even as the weather's changing. Then I mentioned wireless charging. The new wireless charging system uses electromagnetic induction, which can help battery length last longer. While we're on the topic of life-changing products, you can forget about Manscaped's. Well, you can't even forget about Manscaped's Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer. That was the one I was talking about. The Weed Whacker is also waterproof and provides a proprietary advanced skin safe technology, nailed at that time, which helps reduce nicks, snags and tugs in those delicate nose holes. Make sure to swing by Tesco and pick up these products yourself, for yourself, your father, your brother, or even your grandpa. Everyone needs a trim, and what better time to start fall with the leaves coming off the branch. Go to manscaped.com, get 20% off and free shipping with the promo code SevereMMA. That's, lads, you couldn't ask for better than that. That's 20% off, free shipping at manscaped.com when you use the code SevereMMA. Stop acting the maggot and get a grip with Manscaped. Now available also in Tesco, Ireland. Right, Graham, let's get into it. I said this a couple of weeks ago, but I really don't know where to start this week. It was certainly one of those weekends in the world of mixed martial arts, and it's been a few. I saw someone tweeting the other day that the meta for MMA has been sent to injury-ending fights, and it feels like over the last while with the John Lennon Kawan and One Championship and this one, and we had a spate of them as well not too long ago where it was just like injuries, and someone was asking me a question on the Q&A about who's the next person going to break a bone in a fight, and I'm like, that's not a very nice question to be asking now, is it? But it became like such a thing, I suppose, that it's becoming an issue in MMA. And maybe we'll talk about that before we actually get into the fights or anything, because MMA is to steal a phrase, MMA is a tough fucking sport, and just to be able to get through, we talk about it the odd time. We talked about it last week, funnily enough, with Sean O'Malley before the fight, and my pick was Jan, based on the fact that I thought O'Malley mightn't survive it if Jan brought a really tough fight and landed lots of shots and was maybe dominating for a while. Now that didn't turn out to be that way, but it's maybe a thing we need to actually talk about more, that like we can break down the ability of fighter A versus the ability of fighter B, but the ability of fighter A or fighter B to actually survive the fight and get through it is a massive thing. Like, even you saw Calvin Kattar and Arnold Allen last night. Like, Allen was winning the fight and was kind of forcing Kattar to do different things. Maybe we'll get into the specifics of that more in a second. But he kind of, like, he jumped up to try to throw like a desperation flying knee and fell on his leg, fell on his knee and seemingly, you know, hurt it really badly. And it's just things like that, like, you know, with the calf kicks now coming in, checking more calf kicks, more leg injuries. It's a tough sport. It really is a tough sport. I know, Graham, you've watched a lot of sparring and different things. Like, the small niggly injuries happening, I suppose, happen all the time, but also like big injuries like this, when it comes to big, massive, important fights, seem like they're happening more and more. And you know what? It probably shouldn't be shocking, should it?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, it's happening kind of behind the scenes all the time. There's like shoulder injuries, knee injuries, elbow injury, you know, all sorts of fucking injuries going on, rib injuries, just like little niggles as well, like swelling, stuff like that. But a lot of the time, the guys just kind of tough it out or like lay off that during the camp and try to do other things and get through it. And you see them after the fight to maybe get a surgery or something. So I don't know why at the moment it seems to be coming out in big fights that people seem to be not able to continue or dramatically compromised due to an injury in the fight that maybe they probably were carrying throughout the camp. I just think it's a bit of, I don't know, bad luck or just a coincidence that it seems to be happening more, because like kind of like I was saying with TJ Dillashaw last week, it's easy afterwards to say, oh, look, he obviously wasn't going to last. But, you know, I say he's come into fights over the years with similarly bad injuries and got through it, you know. So in their mind, they can always get through it and they're always going to give it a go. But obviously it's disappointing for the fans when it seems to be a trend now of big fights kind of falling, or not falling apart, but kind of the enjoyment being taken away to some extent due to injuries. But I don't know. They just say when it rains, it pours, I suppose. I think it was about 5 years ago, the UFC had like every single fucking pay-per-view main event of the year fall out and loads of fights fall out and all that stuff. And then for a couple of years, it didn't seem to happen all that often. I don't know what the reason is. I think it's just more dumb luck than anything.
I don't know. Myself and Harry have talked about this in Speaker's Corner before. Briefly, I suppose, about like the need to become as well-rounded as godly possible, I suppose, to be able to fight at this top level. Like, even watching the main event last night, Bisping was talking about Arnold Allen. I can't say Arnold Allen. And he was talking about like
Arnold.
Arnold. I'll go that way from now on. He was like, he has no parts of his game missing, which is something, right? If you think about that, right, you've no parts of your game missing. So you're very good at wrestling, jiu-jitsu, boxing, kickboxing, and Dominic Cruz is always talking about his strength and conditioning and his cardio. If you are really good and are not falling down in any of those areas, the amount of work that you need to put in, not only to become really good at those areas, but to upkeep how good you are to stay at the very, very top is gargantuan. Like, it's really insane. Because if you look at it, say, in boxing, right, you could spend 10 years becoming like a fantastic boxer and becoming like the best boxer in the world. And no, I'm not saying it's that easy, but you get what I mean. You have a really good trainer, you're very athletic, you take to it, you get the right experience, you can become great. And then to prepare for fights, you hone that greatness. Maybe you'll make little adjustments or little improvements, and you get your strength and conditioning up, right? And that's like a preparation of very kind of easy margins, I suppose, while not being easy, you know, to prepare and to be in the right shape. It takes a lot. But if you're preparing for an MMA fight, you not only have to upkeep what you already have, you also have to kind of learn the improvements that are there in jiu-jitsu, in wrestling, when it comes into the jiu-jitsu and how that's changing as well. In the you know, the addition of leg kicks over the last while, and calf kicks more correctly, I suppose, and etc. 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 We always say with an MMA, you're watching it and something happens, a new technique, and then everyone's using that same technique for the next few weeks. You have to kind of learn that as well and go at it while doing your strength and conditioning, while staying fit. It's just impossible. Like MMA, we've always kind of talked about it being boxing plus wrestling plus this and this, and it's definitely becoming more of just a sport of MMA itself. But the amount of skills, the amount of techniques that you have to learn to become proficient at MMA is massive. But imagine to become Arnold Allen's level, where you've won 11 in a row, where you're on about fighting Volkanovski, the #1 pound for pound fighter in the world. That is just crazy. It's almost, and obviously Calvin Kattar as well in the same breath. It's almost impossible to be able to upkeep your body and to be able to stay fit to do that. And I wonder as well, like preparing for the 5 rounds, you said about main events falling out and things. I wonder, is the preparation for 5 rounds, obviously you haven't upped the cardio, haven't upped the ability to last, I suppose, but also like just the mental side of it, where like, right, I've been training really hard for my 3-round fights for the last 5 years or whatever it might be. Now I have a 5-round fight. I'm going to have to train. What percentage of that is it? I don't know, 60% harder or whatever it is. I bet you that's the thing, because MMA fighters, like we people give out about them all the time, but they're tough people, and they don't want to not be prepared in the right fashion, and they don't want to half-arse it or anything like that. They want to become the best when you're at that level, and they probably feel the need that they need to improve upon all areas, but with that cardio area as well, to prepare for these big fights. And I'm sure that it's not easy for the body to survive that. Like, the body is not made to survive these sort of things. You have to harden it and strengthen it over the years. And what if a part of your body falls apart? What if you didn't do the right things 5 or 6 years ago, and now you're kind of trying to catch up again? It must be very, very tough. Like, it must be so tough. And it's very few people, I suppose, have experienced that. There's no strength and conditioning coach that knows the difference, or maybe there's one or two, but very few, I suppose, that know the difference between preparing for a 3-round fight and a 5-round fight, and what actually should be done, and how you should adjust not only your strength and conditioning, but also your game plan, and what you should put into it in terms of skill acquisition in that camp as well, to make your chances of winning the fight even more. It's a very, very difficult conversation, lots of very difficult choices to make to achieve that, and injuries become an absolute massive part of that, I assume, as well. Like you mentioned TJ Dillashaw as well. Like, you also make the choice in the middle of camp. It's like, right, I have an injury. What am I going to do here? Am I going to keep fighting? Am I going to prepare in a different way? Is it going to limit my endurance? Is it going to limit my ability to do this and this and this? And that's something as well. And I know you've seen, and I've seen down through the years, even talking to lads behind the scene. I remember I was talking to someone recently, and I did an interview with him or whatever, and he was like, yeah, this and this, I'm going to win this way and that way, and very confident. And then I stopped the thing, and I was talking to him afterwards, and he was like, Jess, I've been absolutely dying with the flu there for the last 3 weeks. I had COVID and I couldn't get rid of him, and I haven't had time to train, just going to be able to make weight. And I was like, what? You just lied barefaced for the last fucking 25 minutes or whatever it was in that interview, and now you're telling me you're probably not going to win the fight. And he didn't win the fight. So it's it's one of those things. It's mad, but look, these things happen in MMA, I suppose. Let's talk a little bit about the fight, so I suppose, Graham. What did you think of the Arnold Allen performance? I thought it was really, really good. What did you see in it?
Yeah, I agree. Arnold was looking good. I kind of feel like there was a feeling out process, and the fight was just kind of about to get going properly when the kind of the knee injury or the leg injury happened. So it was pretty disappointing in that way. But for Arnold Allen, what more can he do? You know what I mean? It's not his fault. I like the way he showed the ruthlessness to immediately throw that leg kick into the leg. I was talking about it last week about, you have to be no mercy out there, and he was. And obviously it's not the way you want to win, and you see afterwards that he wanted to win, and you see afterwards that he's kind of disappointed, didn't know kind of if he can call for a title shot or not, and kind of half called for an interim one. But from his side of things, he did nothing wrong, but it seemed like the fight was kind of just getting going properly when it happened. And as we mentioned, maybe if this had happened in isolation, people would have been like, oh, okay, fair enough, these things happen. But because it kind of seems to keep happening, as we talked about, people maybe a bit more pissed off about the whole thing. But from both guys' sides, there's not much they can do. And from Arnold, he did everything he could do, and he's on an 11-fight win streak now. And it does seem like the time, if you're gonna put Volkanovski up at 55 to do an interim title shot for Arnold Allen, maybe Josh Emmett it's not the biggest selling fight or whatever, but you know, I think 11 fights and the kind of the caliber and the fact that, you know, he has the English crowd or the UK crowd behind him and all, it definitely plays a factor, and maybe he could get a decent card going there. But it's just all a little bit disappointing. It was kind of, you know, his chance to kind of really make a statement with Volkanovski kind of moving up to really make a statement and put himself into position, and now it's a little bit murky and kind of down to no fault of his own. But yeah, I thought he looked good out there, but obviously it would have been nice to see how the fight developed.
Yeah, indeed. And just on the title thing first, like, if they are doing a stadium in the UK for the Leon Edwards fight, which I'm pretty skeptical about, but we'll see, I think they could put him as the interim title fight on that against Josh Emmett or Yair Rodriguez, whoever it might be. I think that'd make a whole ton of sense. Like, the fact as well, as you said, 11-fight win streak now. He was on a 10-fight win streak coming in, and this happens sometimes in MMA where guys go on a streak like this and they're clearly like the next guy up. And it happened to Cub Swanson before, and they tried to put him in there with a guy. Who did they put? I think they put Cub in there with Frankie in a rematch after Frankie had fought for the title and everything. And it feels like they just don't fancy him, you know. And I don't know, is that the case with Arnold Allen? You think it'd be the opposite, because Arnold's a different type of cat. Like, you know, he's not this guy who comes out there and talks shit and does all this, but he's funny and people like him and they like his fight style. He's one of those guys that actually kind of has gotten over, to steal a phrase from pro wrestling, while not needing to talk and while not needing to be you know, outlandish or make up stuff or whatever.
Yeah, and I think he's gotten over with like us and like people who are paying close attention to the game. But if you ask the casual, you know, American or whatever,
I don't know.
I don't know how much they know about him. You know what I mean? I
think they'd know more than the normal fighter who's like coming up or on the way forward. That we like, say like a Sean Brady. I think they'd know more about him than they would about someone like that, even though he's obviously very, very good as well. It's I don't know, just maybe I'm wrong, maybe it just feels that way to me, but you know, he's had a few things recently and he's been funny on Twitter and you know, things like that go over well and really help, I think, with fans. But I suppose that's an aside anyway, and it doesn't really matter. But he's done enough. I thought he'd done enough, winning 10 fights in a row.
Yeah, I think it does matter. I think to the UFC it really matters. You know, if he goes out there and wins by injury, obviously it's not ideal, but you know, he's being himself in the interview afterwards, which is great. But you know, for the fans and for the UFC and getting people excited and getting people to say, okay, we need to put this guy in a title shot, you know, you need to make the buzz yourself. Like, nobody else is going to do it for you. So it's kind of a hard situation where we want guys to be genuine themselves and all, but you're your own business and you need to make this happen. And you know, he might be one of these guys that they kind of match up to not get to the title shot if you don't make a splash with the fans. And I just, well, like, maybe I'm wrong, but I think outside of like the local scene or the UK scene and the hardcores, I don't think he's, you know, I don't think fans are clamoring to see him in a title shot, which you know, they should be on an 11-fight win streak. Maybe it doesn't help that the fights are broken up a little bit. There was a few injuries in there and cancelled bouts and things like that. But you know, if you just look at the recent record, you'd say, oh yeah, this guy's definitely, you know, at the top of the division, and you should put him in a title shot. But we all know it's not just about that. It is about personality. It is about being able to sell, get people interested, and everybody knows that. But it's definitely holding some guys back. Like, even look at Leon Edwards. If he had a kind of been more outgoing and put himself out a bit more, maybe he would have got to the title shot earlier. And you know, maybe it was the perfect time for him to get there and everything worked out in the end. But for some of these guys, circumstances end up that they never actually get that title shot.
I agree. Yeah. You're right. You're definitely right in that's like the personality and stuff hinders people a bit. I don't think putting on stuff though actually helps either. Like, it can for some people, you know, like Colby or Henry Cejudo, or
not even pretend to be somebody else, but just have a name ready and be like, yeah, you know, you say what you say, and then at the end 100%. Say, I fucking 11-fight win streak. You know, everybody's overlooking me. I fucking want Josh Emmett in fucking whatever, Birmingham or London or whatever, and you know, I think everybody in the crowd here will agree that I deserve it or whatever. They all cheer. Yeah. That's better. You know, it's not, don't be somebody else. You can just call for what you think you deserve.
Yeah, he definitely should have and could have done that. as you know, we were talking to Spencer about it over and over in the group chat, and he was kind of saying, he made a good point, like that he could have just broken his hand. It was a weird win. It was, you know, and you feel weird about doing it then, which I absolutely understand. But at the same time, like, there's an easy way around that, saying, like, I deserved this title shot before this fight. They made me jump through hoops to get to a title shot. I came in here, I destroyed this guy, and then he fell apart. Let me get that title shot now. I want to fight Josh Emmett. I don't want anything that I haven't earned. 11 fight win streak, Josh Emmett, London, interim title, co-main event on Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman 2. Let's do it. You know, it's not rocket science.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Don't have to be like fucking 50 G's, but you don't have to be like Paddy Pimblett impersonator or Conor. You can just be yourself.
Yeah.
Like, do that, and then at the end say like a quick sentence like that you have prepared.
100%. Yeah, he definitely could have done that. I 100% agree with that, and I was saying that last night as well. But yeah, he didn't, and that's unfortunate, because even the last time he was like, I think Volkanovski was fighting around the same time, and like, he had put himself in there to be, you know, it was either him or Emmett getting the next title shot. And I think, look, Emmett has been around for a while, and he's had opportunities to get there more than Arnold Allen, and has kind of failed and jumped back up. And no disrespect to Emmett, but Arnold Allen is the guy at that stage a 10-fight win streak, and then he calls for Calvin Kattar. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you calling out Calvin Kattar? You should be calling out the fucking champ. You know, reach for the fucking stars, and you might fall and land in the clouds and fight Calvin Kattar, no problem. But call out fucking Volkanovski, or say, you know, I want Volkanovski next, and I'll beat Calvin Kattar along the way if I have to, or something like that. But call that name of Volkanovski. It just, anyway, I don't think that's
like, if he thought like, here, I'm not ready, I'd like a couple more fights before I get to the title, then that would be fine. But he's like, you know, he did say in a roundabout way, like, I do deserve this title shot. It was just gonna, you know, from I picked up from what he said, that he does think he's ready for a title shot. So yeah, you know, it would be fair enough if he thought, here, I want to test myself against a couple more guys, improve a couple more camps, whatever. Fair enough, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Yeah, and the saddest thing about this fight as well, just to kind of get back to it there for a second, I actually think Aaron Allen was about to destroy Calvin Kattar. I think he was going to finish him. I really, really do. Like, the way this fight went, where Aaron Allen was kind of winning the early exchanges, and you look like Kattar, what he's really good at is landing the jab and landing all those strikes and landing in combinations. And he did land a couple of jabs, but every time that he was throwing shots, Allen was kind of landing one back early, even when he did, before he kind of upped the ante. And then Calvin Kattar landed one power shot, and it kind of turned from there in that first round. Allen just upped the pace, landed loads of straights right down the middle, hurt Kattar one time with a big combination, and then a second time straight after it as well. Like, it was a clear round for Arnold Allen. It really looked like Kattar, and no, not to say that he couldn't make adjustments if he'd stayed fully fit, or he couldn't have hung in there or anything like that, but it was looking really bad at that stage for Calvin Kattar, because he wasn't able to do the things that he normally does in the area where he does them. And that was where the fight was happening, and Arnold Allen was still winning there. So I think it was a massive disadvantage for Kattar, and we saw the ending happen because he realised that, and he was trying to change things up, and he was throwing a flying knee, which you never see from Calvin Kattar in that sort of way, and then he came down on his knee. Like, I don't, this might sound very harsh or something like that, but like, it was his decision to jump and do that mad technique which got him injured, for being honest. Like, and if we're looking at it from Arnold Allen's point of view, but like, you know, he probably has thrown that, like, you know, on a bag or in training and sparring and all that stuff loads of times, and you could probably throw that knee like hundreds of times and not injure yourself like that. So it is just, in my opinion, really unlucky.
Yeah, I would say it's probably a bit less unlucky than most injuries in that cases. Like, it was, I don't think it was a smart technique to throw at that time, especially with Arnold Allen kind of moving out the way of it, like clearly moving out the way of it to the other side. Anyway, like that's obviously very, very harsh for me. But when you look at the fight, that's the way it was going. He was kind of forced to throw something like that, and it was probably, you know, it's probably necessary, but also not the smartest thing in the world. But I'll digress on that one. It went on. What did you think of between rounds? Like, a lot of people criticizing I think it was Herb Dean, wasn't it, and the doctor as well. I wouldn't give him too much criticism. Like, he went over on his knee. Sometimes you go over on your knee, you click it or whatever, and it might be grand. You might be able to either, you know, get through it, I suppose, or it might just be you jarred it and it's grand and you can keep going. And I don't think he looked too bad in the corner, to be honest, or maybe he just hit it. Well, obviously he just hit it very, very well. I don't criticise him too much for letting it go on.
Yeah, I think it should have been let go on, even though, you know, it's easy to say afterwards that it shouldn't have been. But at the time, even into his corner, they asked about his leg and he said, "Oh, I'm not sure what happened." And then he tried to kind of ease it out, jumped up and down a few times. It seemed okay. You know, obviously it was a bit it's something that happened to it, but in the moment, adrenaline, all that stuff, you're probably not sure how bad it is. And he's probably, you know, fought through injuries before, as I was saying earlier. And I think that from what the doctor saw and what we saw on the TV, I think it was the right decision to let it go on, even though obviously in hindsight, it's easy to say it wasn't.
It's easy. What's the thing Artem says? It's easy.
It was Luka Jelkic.
Yeah,
it's easy to be the general after the battle.
That's good. That's a good one, though, to be fair. Indeed it is. But so the fight came out. People didn't see the fight. Come out for the second round. Arnold hit him with one low kick, and that was, I think it was on the other leg actually, hit him with the low kick. Was it? I haven't gone back and watched.
Yeah, but you know it's like going straight for the legs. That's just, you know, as I said earlier, you have to show no mercy. You know, he could land like a big punch even when compromised, or you know, he could land some big strike, or you could end up slipping on the ground underneath, you know, eating shots. So you have to show no mercy, and it was good to see Arnold Allen doing that. Okay, Graham, here's the question: what was the result of that fight? Like, if you were to write it down on Sherdog and put down the result of that fight, what would you put it down as? It should just be a TKO leg kick.
Absolutely. I put that up on Twitter yesterday, and people like up in arms saying, "Are you just being stupid, or are you just being smart? Are you actually stupid?" It's like the injury happened the round before. He kept going. He kept on. Okay, the injury was absolutely a massive part of it. No getting that wrong. But he kicked him. He went down, and the fight ended. It's like, what do you want here? Like, what? It's not like it got to, let's say,
like if somebody has a broken rib and you body shot them and they go down, it's still a TKO. Like.
Yeah, indeed. Like, there's some fight, let's say even the McGregor fight, you know, the famous where he's running Dr. Stoppage. He got kicked. His ankle or leg got broke or whatever, went to the end of the round, and then the doctor came in and looked at him, stopped the fight. Like, if the fight had been stopped at the end of the first round, and it was the doctor stopped it, that would have been Dr. Stoppage.
It wasn't even a kick, it was standing back on the leg.
Indeed, but if it had been stopped, right, let's say Cater went down after he injured his knee at, you know, 4:38 of the first round or whatever, wasn't able to continue, then absolutely that's a TKO via injury. But the fight went on, he kicked him and he went down. I'm not saying it wasn't a part of it, and you know, sometimes they do it like it's injury and leg kicks or whatever, or something like that, or you know, knees and punches. I'm like, well, it's your fucking knees or punches, like decide. And sometimes it can be both, absolutely, but yeah, that's
maybe like, you know, for Calvin Kattar, it'd probably be, you know, he'd be saying, the injury was what caused the end of the fight, and argue that way, and I could see a bit of the argument, but yeah, as you said, it wasn't that, you know. It was too.
I'm purely talking here about facts. Like, the injury definitely caused the end of the fight. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. When we're talking about facts, like if you're writing it down for forever more to come, how did this fight end? I think you have to be very factual about it. You can't say your opinion and all that, but that's literally doesn't matter. So we'll move off of that. Right, we are a half an hour in here, and we've talked about one fight, so we better hurry along here. Look, this UFC wasn't great, to be honest. I didn't see most of the fights on it because I was watching Bellator. We'll talk a little bit more about Bellator. Max Griffin went in there, win a split decision. Also, a shout out and just seeing split decision there. There was a good few split decisions and a lot of contentious decisions over the last while. But you know, these things happen in MMA. Shout out to my guy Ben Carledge, first ever UK judge over in Las Vegas. He did a great job. In my opinion, he was on the right side of all of these decisions, although they were all close. So no disrespect to any of the other judges, but you know, everyone knows Ben has been on the podcast before and does a great job. And you know, it's been tough as well. He was doing that Yan fight, he was doing the Khalil Rountree fight last night, which were two very close decisions. People giving out about, in my opinion, you know, two very, very close fights. And we talked about the one last week, the Khalil Rountree one. I think he got this one right. I thought Khalil just about won it. Very, very close. It was weird. We'll skip to Khalil for a second and we'll just talk about that fight. But shout out to Ben and congratulations to him getting over to Vegas and doing it. And I think great job as well by the Vegas Commission to do that and spread their wings and get the best judges over, because they need them. They absolutely do. There's a lot of fights in Vegas now as well, so the judges over there also need a rest at times as well. So fair play to them. This Khalil Roundtree fight, it was so weird because I spent the first. I was talking to Ian about it at the time as well. The two of us were like, "What's Khalil doing here? Why is he fighting so differently?" Khalil Roundtree to me is. I tweeted it last night. Like, he's like a guy who only uses the techniques he's learned in this training camp in the fight. It's like he forgets everything he ever did before and comes out like a completely different fighter. And this might have been, even though he won and even though he did well, I think this might have been one of the worst versions of Khalil Roundtree we've seen. I just think, oh my God, there's sometimes you see guys, right, and they want to do, and this is not roundabout saying the way I just said the last thing, they want to do all the things they just learned and forget about what makes them great. Like Khalil Roundtree to me is like a really good, like, fast twitch power striker inside. And like if he fought, say, like a Yoel Romero type way and just kind of waited, stayed safe and landed big shots, he's really, really good at that. But what he did last night was playing like the inside hand fighting, trying to land little hooks inside type of game, like Robbie Lawler and Johnny Hendricks used to play back in the day. Also added to like this kind of front leg moving Muay Thai stance, and when he kind of got to a little bit of range, he was throwing that straight left right down to the middle, and it was really, really good. It was really good. But then when he went back to his own, when he kind of thought about it, went back to the game he wanted to fight, it was just like so pointless, because Jacoby's like a very good striker. I think he was saying he's a Glory kickboxing champion or something like that, and he's very, very good. And he was just like, it wasn't that he was dominating Roundtree in that, it was actually very even, I think. It was just Roundtree was making it a more even fight than it needed to be. It was like, just step back from this guy, throw your big shots when you need to, and don't take any shots from him. It was like a fight I think he could have won. Maybe he could have won a lot easier, and he just made hard work of it, I feel like. Like Roundtree to me, right, because he has acquired so many skills down through the years. I would love to see him go like someone like Matt Hume, right, and spend a fucking year training with Matt Hume, and then spend the next and then have a fight, and then spend the next 5 years training with Matt Hume. Like, genuinely, and I mean this, Khalil Roundtree could become a UFC champion. I believe in him that much. I think he's that good. He has all the skills, but just putting it together, he almost game plans too much. He almost has too much of a game plan in very different ways all the time, and it's very kind of frustrating to watch. But anyway, maybe I'm just overblown. What did you think of that fight, Graham? The decision and the fight itself?
Yeah, like I didn't watch it with a fine tooth comb, but the second round I think it came down to, and having kind of just like watched it without watching it to judge it, I did think that Jacoby was going to get the decision, but the second round was really close, and when you're not watching it really closely, it's hard. But I haven't watched it back either. But a really close second round either way, and I know people were there was a bit of controversy over it, but he did land some power shots in that round. He probably got outlanded by a good percentage, but as we talked about before, it's the impactful shots, and a lot of these rounds are coming down to what the judges or what the people watching kind of calculate as being the more impactful shots, and that's obviously very subjective. But it's hard to say, definitively who won the fight without going back and watching it again.
Even that first round as well. Like I was watching, it was like, okay, Jacoby's ahead, and then Roundtree landed a massive shot just towards the end of the round, which on TV I actually don't think looked that big, but I kind of went back and I looked at it again. It was a massive shot. Like, that's the sort of shot that can change around like that as well, especially if you're a judge and you're on the right side of it and you see it that way. I know one judge had the first round for Roundtree, and two judges had it for Jacoby, and I still think Jacoby won it, but I can definitely see an argument there. But as I said, very, very close fight throughout anyway. But yeah, indeed. Max Griffin then and Tim Means. I thought this one was going to end very, very quickly. Max Griffin came out, dropped him, got on top, and then it kind of turned into a little bit of a bore fest, if we're being honest. It wasn't great after that. There was kind of a lot of these fights that started out well, and then it was like, meh. But a good win for Max Griffin, very, very good. It's weird though that Max Griffin Griffin versus Tim Means in 2022 as a co-main event. Like, that tells you how bad this card was. Waldo Cortez Acosta won against Jared Vanderaa in a unanimous decision. Another snooze fest, who cares? Tresean Gore, he guillotined Josh Friend, like friend with no I-N-N, and he literally nearly took the head off him. Like, he started guillotining him. Friend climbed up the cage, and it was a standing guillotine. He climbed up the cage, and then Tresean Gore just pulled him away from the cage, and he was guillotining him as Friend was in the air, and literally nearly pulled the head off him, and the referee had to step in. And it was Chris Tognoni, I think, and stopped it. A good stoppage in the end, but Frim's head jumped back and hit the fucking canvas. And it was a tough one, a very, very tough one. Then we round three, Jacoby Roman Delice again. I didn't see most of the rest of these fights, Graham, if I'm being honest. You can run us through the rest of them here.
Phil Hayes got injured in the...
Phil Hayes?
Hawes.
From knocking out.
Got injured and tried to fight on as well. So that's another one to add to the list of fights kind of ruined by injuries or scuppered by injuries. Before that, Arlovsky didn't look great. Kind of seemed to not really resist too much, getting rear naked choked at the end. Park got a nice rear naked choke. Chase Hooper got pretty destroyed by Steve Garcia. I don't know, 20 seconds into the fight, 30 seconds into the fight, he looked like he'd been in a bomb site. His face was all purple. He's just way too hittable, Chase Hooper. How is Chase Hooper still in the UFC, if we're being honest? Like, I know he's a funny guy and he's good on Twitter and stuff, but I feel bad watching, and I know he's won a fight recently, but I feel bad watching this guy. Like, he shouldn't be fighting you. Like, go and do some jiu-jitsu or do your ADCCs or something. It's like watching Andrew McGann in an MMA fight or something. I feel bad for him. I'm like, don't beat that poor boy around the place. Like, if I feels really bad, like, let him go. But he's 3-3 in the UFC now, so he's probably looking at maximum another one if he doesn't win, but. Yeah, he looks like he has a lot of work to do, and maybe a stint outside, the UFC would be good for him. We've seen that benefit, guys, and they come back more developed, and maybe that'll be the case with Hooper. But yeah, he just doesn't seem UFC ready yet.
Just get on Gordon Ryan's protein, go to the ADCCs, put on your pajamas, and have a few rolls around with lads. You know, that's your future. Don't mind this MMA fighting. Don't mind it. Get away from it. But anyway, what about the rest of them, Graham?
There was a decision there with Cody Duran and Carlos Mata.
Congrats, Cody. Fair play, Chad. You're like, there was a decision there. Like, fair play, Cody. Congratulations.
Yeah, the card, the prelims, and
who cares? Like,
basically, there wasn't much on this card really.
No, there wasn't.
There was an Anaconda choke. Christian Rodriguez got it easily. I don't know. Josh Williams really knew how to defend, or just maybe made a mistake and turned into it and looked to give up the Anaconda pretty easily. But there wasn't like, there was a few nice finishes and things like that on doing the card, but no real jeopardy. Not too many high level fights. It just wasn't a great card. And then obviously with the decision in the co-main event and the injury in the main event, it wasn't
great night all around.
You got to call it like it is. It wasn't the greatest card in the world.
What do you think of this Josh Thompson thing? Oh, the MMA media's job is to promote these guys.
We keep hearing this stuff from different people. I don't know. What do you think? We're like PR?
The MMA media job is the exact opposite of the promote.
I'm afraid to lose my credentials for the UFC.
Yeah. Oh no.
Never use.
Funnily enough, the only entity or promotion ever to ban me was Bellator, and they stopped sending me emails and all because I was saying bad things about him. Like, no.
The only time I was banned was when in Brooklyn. When I wasn't even there.
You were. You were banned by.
I was in Dublin, and it was like half the people on the fucking thing weren't even there. Like, and then they were like, "Oh no, sorry, we thought it was somebody else." It was like,
right. It was definitely you anyway. But just absolute bullshit from Josh Thompson. Like, if there's a shitty card like last night, our job is to come on and call it a shitty card.
Is he just trying to be like a Chael Sonnen just to say controversial things to get hits, or do you think he actually believes this?
I don't think he's that smart, to be honest, to play people. I just think he's a bit stupid. Like, and I like Josh, and I've talked to him a few times and met him.
He's actually a bit stupid. I like Josh.
He's not as stupid as he makes out. So there is a bit of it, to be honest. He's a nice guy and everything like that. But that was. I've said some stupid things myself. You said stupid things, and like you said, Liverpool will win the league and stuff.
Twitter snippets and but
he
did it. He kind of
made a point of being stupid. Yeah, he was hoisted upon his own petard. Was poor old Joshy. Also,
winner learn. Yeah.
This Bellator versus Rising card. I don't know any of the Rising lads. I'm going to be honest. Like. Just Rising is a thing that bypasses me, and all the Bellator guys on it, I know them and they're very, very good, but like I'll have to look into those Rising guys. Like I won't be able to madly promote it until someone tells me who those Rising lads are, like, if we're being honest. So anyway, let's talk about Bellator briefly, and then we have a massive Cage Warriors card to preview. So Bellator, I did a full breakdown of this over in Sherdog. If anyone's checked that out, you probably don't, but anyway, the main event, Mansour Benoit looked absolutely fantastic, destroyed Adam Piccolotti, just basically kind of took the fight to the ground over and over, made it easy, really. Piccolotti got a couple of takedowns and he just got swept so easily. Like, this Benoit is he's a top fighter, and he's going to make waves in that lightweight division in Bellator. We'll pop back to Fabian Edwards and Charlie Ward. We'll talk about that at the end. I assume you've watched that one, Graham. This card was so weird because there was loads of Italian. It was on in Italy, in Milan. Loads of Italians on the undercard, massive crowd, and I saw my guy Tudor Leonte over in Sherdog saying everyone left. A lot of people left before the main event. Before the main card, not even the main event, because there was no Italians. Which, if you're an Irish MMA fan, makes a lot of sense. Like, they didn't have any interest in this. It was ridiculous card placement by Bellator. I don't know what they were doing, and like, I feel like they won't make that mistake again. But anyway, Saul Rogers, Tim Wilde, a great win for Tim Wilde. Looked very, very good for the second half of this fight, I suppose. Was absolutely picking him off in the third round. Great performance from him. Andrew Fisher got beat by Justin Gonzalez. Not a great fight to write home about. Daniel Scatizzi beat David Gallon. He got a takedown early, chain wrestling for the whole of the first round, the close second round. Scatizzi got a few takedowns and landed some nice ground and pound and deserved to win that. So a good win for the Italian SPG, and there was a few Italian SPG guys on this. Costello Vancinistin got a great win. Landed loads of calf kicks, up the pace as the fight went, which you don't see often in MMA. It wasn't that he started slow, but he started at a pace, and then the pace got higher and higher and higher, and he ended with a lovely Darce choke. He has to be in the conversation as well at the top of that middleweight division after beating Fabian Edwards, coming back from injury now and winning that. Alfie Davis just destroyed Thibaut Gouti, fighting off the back foot. Very interesting fight. One of those fights where you look at the octagon control again and look at the guy that won 30-27 on all three cards, having zero octagon control, and Thibaut Gouti, his opponent, having all the octagon control and still losing 30-27 on all three cards. So there you go. Alfie Davis just picked him off from the back foot. So the next fight, Kira Pacheco versus Manuela Marcanetto. I'm going to need to go and rewatch that one, to be honest, because I was watching...
Penko, not Pachenko.
Oh, sorry, Pinko, yeah. A lot of people calling that a massive robbery, and I'm definitely going to need to go and rewatch it because I was half watching it with another fight or something else at the same time, and I didn't watch it fully, so I'm going to need to go back. Pinko won it, and everyone kind of thought Manuela won it, so we'll have to go back and we'll have to see on that one.
It looked like even Penko looked shocked when he got the decision.
It was definitely another one. Yves Landau didn't beat Walter Coglinandro, who's out of SPG as well, I believe. Landau got a few takedowns. He was very, very good. He went for an Americana at one stage, and he was talking to a corner. I'm not sure if it was John Kavanagh or his own corner, but didn't get the Americana. I wasn't even near to it. It was just the weirdest thing of all time. Anyway, he kind of won on the feet and on the ground, and in the third as well. Got a crucifix at one stage to win the fight. Simon Biong, this guy, you have to keep an eye on this guy. Really, really good. He beat Luke Traynor last time out, beat Dragos Zubko here, landed a few shots, got a few takedowns. takedowns, got a mount at one stage, ground and pound. It was a very rough finish at the end. It looked like Zubko was injured, but he got up and he was fine afterwards. The Nicolo Soli, obviously out of SBG as well. Round 1, he's wrestling won it for him. He was looking for the armbar in round 2, but Kamara landed some big ground and pound, probably won that round. Round 3 then there was like 3.5 minutes to clinch. Soli with a big punch, almost got the rear naked choke, and ended up winning that. I think he got the correct decision there. Hopped into the crowd afterwards. This is where like the Italian crowd were mad during the prelims. They were a great crowd. Unfortunately, the main card had no Italians on it, so they couldn't be a great crowd, but that was fun. Luke Traynor finished his opponent Lucas Alcina very quickly. Front kick to the face, takedown, rear naked choke. Andrea Fusi, not a great performance, got destroyed by Stephen Hill. Lost 1 and 2, outstruck in round 3 at the start, and then out wrestled at the end of it. Wrestling in rounds 1 and 2 from Hill. And then Kamadov, liver kick KO to Jose Tume. So that's that there. Before we move to cage wars, Graham, did you see the Anderson Silva Jake Paul thing just briefly here? I don't really want to talk about it.
I didn't stay up for it, but I saw just on MMA Reddit, I saw like the knockdown towards the end, but no, I didn't stay up for it. Did you stay up for it?
I did, yeah. I was, well, I'd be up anyway because, you know, I'm a fucking degenerate, but yeah, I didn't buy it, but I watched it. I would put it that way. It was weird because I don't want to go through and break it down fully because that's not us. We're not that shit. And Anderson, as he always does, did nothing in the first round, you know, and the commentary were like, oh, what's he doing? It's like, you've never seen Anderson Silva fight before. And then in the second round, he was just absolutely destroying Jake Paul. And then in the third round, he like got tired and looked old. And he got a punch, I think it was like the fourth round maybe. And like his nose was really bloodied and his cutmen were absolutely terrible and couldn't get his nose like fixed, and it just kept bleeding. And you could kind of see in Anderson's face is like, well, let's not take too much damage here. And he just kind of, he looked old and he looked slow after that, but he kind of just waited out the rest of the fight. Like I think Jake Paul generally is a good boxer, right? And he's a dickhead and it's a big circus and all, but he can box. He didn't look great in this one, and Anderson Silva kind of just let him win because he didn't want to take too much damage, I think, and just stop doing stuff. It was entertaining because it was a 47-year-old man against a young lad who was running around and trying very hard. But it was so sad. Like, it was one of the saddest things. That 12th round or the 8th round or whatever it was, the last round. Oh my God, it was Anderson getting knocked down by this fucking YouTuber with 5 boxing contests. And then at the end of the fight, he was there and he's like, it's still the most useless cut crew of all time. His nose was still bleeding. And they went to a shot of him and he was like bloodied and beaten by a fucking YouTuber and crying. And I was thinking like, are people happy with this? Like, it just, I put it up beforehand, like this thing is fucking sad that a great like Anderson Silva is involved in all this. And you can talk about your money and you can talk about, oh, he wants to fight and he wants to keep at it. But isn't it an absolute shame that legends of our sport like can't be happy with what they've done? And I'm not even talking about money.
It's not just our sport though. It's every competitive sport. You see it in boxing. Guys who've been on the top, made the millions, they come back at like what age did George Foreman come back at? What age?
But you know, do you like, you look at soccer, like, you know, Steven Gerrard's not coming back. If you get me.
Yeah.
Like, why? I know why. I know the reason why. But I'm just saying it's a shame. I'm not talking about Anderson Silva or anyone in general. I'm talking about everyone. Isn't it a shame that like your time is up? Now let's rest. You know, go and do something else. Go and be a trainer. Go and be a promoter. Go, you know. You have to find something. You have to find the next thing. This is over for you, right? This is the end of it for you. You have to move on. And that's a sad and tough thing to say. I'm not saying it's easy. These lads spend their whole lives fighting and never giving up. And to ask them to give up is a very, very tough thing, but they fucking have to. Like, look at BJ Penn for years, what he did. And like, do people really want to see that? No, Anderson is not at that level, but it's so sad.
I agree with you. I think it's kind of like the concussion protocol in like American football and football. somebody else outside has to be able to say that's enough. You're not allowed. Like the commission has to say you can't. You know, I know you're just go somewhere else and get licensed or whatever, but they're like. They're never going to stop. Like even if their coaches, some guys, if their coaches say, "Oh, I'm not cornering anymore, I think it should stop," they'll move to a new camp. You know, it's just impossible to.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Stop these guys, but it is, as you said, it is sad. Like, you know, Anderson Silva, what is he, like 47 or 48 now, or is
47? Yeah,
he's nearly 50 years old. You know what I mean? The ghost of Anderson Silva is still in there, like boxing against a YouTuber. It is, you know. It is a strange situation, and it is like, you know, a sad state of affairs. But even if these guys were paid, you know, what they were earned and had all these millions, I don't think that would change it. I think these guys are they are fighters. Their whole world revolves around fighting for so long that for some of them anyway, it's impossible to break away from it. Like we always joke about it, hashtag MMA retirements. These guys probably, like, you know, have put a thought into it. Okay, I'm going to retire, and then 2 weeks later they have to go back to the gym and do it because that's all they know. That's all they know, you know. Yeah. With Habib, you know, he's still kind of involved in MMA, putting on promotion, training guys, you know, friends of his, teammates of his, cornering them, stuff like that. So he's still involved, and that probably itches a bit of the scratch for him. But for other guys, sometimes they just have nothing. And, you know, Anderson Silva, you probably think, oh, he could go do whatever he wants in, you know, Brazilian TV or something like that, stay involved in the sport. But maybe that doesn't satisfy him. Maybe that's just not for him. And it's really hard to stop these guys when they don't want to be stopped. You know, it's basically impossible. You know, if there's money to be made off them, some promoter will put them on in some jurisdiction and make money off them. But I don't really see a simple solution to the problem.
I don't either, and there isn't. And my whole point here is I'm not talking about a solution. I'm not talking about the commission stopping or anything like that. I'm just talking about like the sad situation. And you said we do the hashtag MMA retirements, and it. You know, it's a joke, absolutely, but it's a joke because of the actual situation that we are in, and it's one of the parts of this sport. There's lots of parts of this sport that fucking pain me, but I really hate that. Like, I really, really hate it. Like, there's nothing worse than watching, and, you know, I'm sure you watch it with Steven Gerrard and you know, I watch it with, you know, Wayne Rooney or Roy Keane or whoever it might be, and other people. Their legs go and they're not the same, you know. But it's very, very easy to see it in sports like that. And some, like in MMA, you can drop a level, but Anderson Silva has dropped level after level after level. And he got, you know, he lost to fucking Uriah Hall and other lads as well. Like, to be in there with this, like a YouTuber, and losing, it's like if Uriah Hall went in there and lost to Anderson, to Jake Paul or whoever, it would be like, okay, you know, fine. He was a kind of a middling light or middleweight for a long time, earned a bit of money, no problem. But this is a great of the sport, an absolute great of the sport. It's not that he has to do this, but it's just like the sport almost breeds this, because it's a dirty, rotten sport at the end of the day. It really fucking is. And things like this make me hate MMA. They're like, I just wish Anderson Silva could be sitting at home watching the fights, or training, you know, his son to come up, or training the next level of MMA fighters to come up, or, you know, they're talking about starting a union, or absolutely do that. But fighting, no mas, Anderson, no mas. Also, this union stuff that Jake Paul is on about, he's just using fighters and their misery to take shots at Dana White and promote himself. Do not fucking be dragged into this lies and bullshit. Like, really, and I need to go on a bigger rant about that fucking idiot, but I don't like talking about it. I don't want to. Anyway, we're going to move on. We're going to talk about cage riders, because fuck that shit. Anyway.
Well, sure, with Fabian Edwards as well.
Oh yeah, Fabian and Charlie Ward. Oh yeah, Jesus Christ.
The tangent took us away.
Did go on. What did you think of that fight?
Yeah, you know, obviously we talked about it before. It was a difficult style matchup for Charlie. I think, you know, Fabian, I don't know what his game plan was. He seemed displeased with himself after saying, "Oh, that wasn't me." But he kind of dictated the fight for most of the time and made it like that. So I don't really understand that as a bit of a strange situation, in my opinion. I don't know what you thought of that, but in the actual fight, you know, I wasn't expecting Edwards to go for the takedowns on Charlie. That that was a good part of the game plan, I suppose. But yeah, Charlie looked in great shape. He just couldn't really get much off. I think he landed 1 or 2 decent shots, but Fabian was just much more fluid on the feet and was mixing it up nicely, and in terms of keeping Charlie guessing with the grappling and things like that. But yeah, it wasn't a great fight, as Fabian said afterwards. There was some funny moments with Charlie kind of fuck off and all this stuff being Charlie to Fabian. Fabian didn't seem to really know what to make of the whole thing, and the ref at the end didn't really know if Charlie was mad or happy or they were friends or enemies, and that was quite funny. But it was just a bit of a strange performance from Fabian, but you know, he got the job done. He kind of probably surprised Charlie. Charlie probably prepared for a different type of fight that didn't happen, so maybe that was a good thing. But yeah, I don't know. I wasn't really that impressed with Fabian's performance, to be honest.
Yeah, it turned into such a weird fight that it was kind of hard to. I hadn't even thought about Fabian's performance not being great, to be honest. It was like, to start it off, I think it was a very kind of slow paced fight, and then Fabian wobbled Charlie with that big head kick, and it looked like he was. Yeah,
he took that really well, Charlie. Yeah, he took that really well.
Charlie's one of these guys who gets wobbled, but then the chin kicks in and he survives. Like he always has kind of done that.
And when he's wobbled, you got to be careful. On haymakers coming back at you.
Yeah, you do. And fucking Fabian nearly caught a few of them. Fabian fell over from a second head kick, and then Charlie just jumped down on him with massive fucking ground and pound. You know, landed a bit after. I think initially the ground and pound was the best. Got up late, nice shot by Charlie. You know, it was a close round. I thought Fabian definitely won it because of the big head kick, but like the rest of the round, Charlie actually probably did win it because he was on top for a good part of it. But Fabian won the round because of that. As you said, the quick takedown to start the second round, nearly into the mount, onto the back, 2 hooks, almost got a rear naked choke. Charlie got out. Then there was the ball kick, which was the start of the weirdness, because Charlie was like calling him a fucking prick, and it was like Charlie had hit Fabian in the ball, so maybe Fabian made a comment or something.
I think maybe Charlie had thought it hadn't, because it kind of glanced off the cup and then landed on the body, so maybe he thought that he had landed into the body or something. That's probably what I was thinking at the time.
Maybe, yeah. There's a couple of more takedowns from Fabian, landed big elbows, almost got an arm triangle at the end, but Charlie defended very, very well. Another takedown from Fabian in the third, got into the mount, took the back, flattened Charlie out. Charlie trapped the gloves really well, and then it was the body triangle, and the body triangle was kept for the rest of the fight by Fabian, and then they just started talking to each other, and Charlie was like, number 2 in the world, and just saying like loads of shit. You're only a bitch.
You're not going to do anything else. Number 2 in the world.
You're only a bitch, Fabian. It was just crazy. And the fight ended, and then like Charlie like jumped in to hug him on the ground, but it felt like they were fighting while hugging, and then they got up and there was like Charlie was throwing like a few like short headbutts at him, but like friendly headbutts, but like were they friendly headbutts? And it was just so weird. It felt like these two lads, I don't know if they were fucking friends or enemies at that stage. It was so bizarre. But anyway, yeah, not a classic now that I think of it, and Fabian kind of said it as well. It was a very funny fight though, and Bellator actually did a great package leading up to it as well. But yeah, look, Fabian moves on. I'd actually like to see him rematch Costello Vancinas in the winner of that fight for the title, but I'd say they might give it to Fabian. They seem to be massively pushing the whole Leon thing and then the two champions thing, so they'll probably give him the title fight. Could you see in Ireland maybe Fabian Edwards fighting Johnny Eblin in Ireland in February? I could see that.
Yeah, it could be. You know, it's the Bellator's kind of biggest venue that they can go to, and if they're trying to make Fabian, you know, a star, you know, which they should be doing, I think. You know, I think he's one of their most talented fighters, especially in that division. So yeah, it would make a lot of sense. But it's hard to see what Bellator will do. They might put him on a UK card or another European card. You know, we were talking about it earlier with their card placement here. I don't know what the thinking was, but sometimes I think they don't. I don't know. They make simple errors like that. You know, obviously you'd have to maybe have a big co-main event of Irish guys, or have another title fight as the co-main event of Irish guys if you don't want people to start leaving, especially if it doesn't. You know, if the fight starts off a little slow or something like that. So I think that has to be taken into consideration if you're putting it on the Irish card. But you know, I'd like to see the rematch with Costello. Obviously, he's returned at the same time, or he's fought at the same time, returning from injury. Got to win. Both guys got to win. I think the timing makes a lot of sense. So, that would be a kind of probably one Fabian wants to get back as well. Like, when guys lose and when guys lose, like one of their first times in their career, they obviously, 99% of the time want to get that back and have confidence in their ability to go in and win. And it was obviously a split decision as well. So I can't remember exactly about Fabian. In these situations, normally the fighter who loses a split decision thought he won. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to put that fight together. The Costello fight I'd prefer to see, I think.
Yeah. Let's do it. So next week we'll get Cage Warriors. Next week's UFC, Marina Rodriguez and Amanda Lemas in the main event. Good fight, maybe not a great fight. The undercard is not bad. Daniel Rodriguez versus Neil Magny is a fun fight. Chase Sherman is back. Tagiru Lembekov is fighting Nate Manis. Grant Dawson against Marco Madsen. I fucking love that fight. That's a very, very interesting fight. Jelton Almeida is back on this card. Shailin is on the card. Jake Hadley is on the card as well. So, not bad to be honest. But we'll have the lads that I'm soon will have a preview for that as well. Let's talk about Cage Warriors, Graham. What a card this is. This is definitely the best card of next weekend. The best Cage Warriors card, I would say, in a good long while. The amalgamation of the titles in the main event: Paul Hughes versus Jordan Vucinic. Lots of Irish fighters on the undercard and lots of very good fighters on the undercard as well. James Sheehan against Jamie Richardson. Lee Chadwick against Modestas Pakauskas. Mehdi Bin Lakhtar is back. If he wins that one, he could be fighting for the title. Chris Bungard is fighting for the title, amazing. I was kind of shocked to see that against your guy George Hardwick coming up here soon. So Mehdi wins that, he could be next in line. Then we've Caelan Locker and Luke Shanks. We'll get to that in a second. Paddy McCrory against James Webb. Harry Hardwick against Steve Amy. We'll love that fight. Fight of the night for me is fucking Ryan Shelley against fucking Josh Reed. What a fight that's going to be. Oban Elliott is back. My guy Oban. Adam Shelley is on the card. Up and down, Graham. This is a fantastic card, isn't it? What one are you looking forward to the most, apart from the main event, I suppose?
I think Reed and Shelley. Reed is always in exciting fights. Shelley's looked great so far. I was looking at the odds there. Shelley's a big favourite. Minus 350. That's wider than I thought it would be. Like, there's a lot of obviously faith in Shelley, and he's looked really good so far. But obviously the last fight was a lot controversial in a lot of people's mind and things like that. So I was surprised to see the odds so wide, like plus 275 and minus 350. That's wide. So
who's the minus 350? Shelley is minus 350, is he?
Yeah.
I think that's about right. I think he is very good. Like, I do think it'll be a stand-up fight as well. Like, Shelley's big issue, or not his big issue, but an issue for him might be the ground. I don't think Josh Reed is going to be taking him down. Do you? Maybe he will, but
yeah, I don't know. It's definitely I'd be probably picking Shelley here, but I was surprised to see the odds so wide. He's still learning his trade. He's still early in his career, and it's a step up. It's definitely a step up. But obviously the bookies have a lot of confidence in him, and maybe the people have been betting on him. But I expect him to go in there and win. But I see this being a difficult fight, and this could go either way. Like, Reed is definitely dangerous, and obviously Shelley is very good on the feet, but yeah, this is going to be a real scrap. I'm really looking forward to it, and if Shelley can win, then that's a big statement that puts him in a great position in the division.
Yeah, Reed is the type of guy as well. Even if let's say Shelley's winning the striking battles, Reed won't go away.
Always dangerous,
always dangerous, but won't go away as well, and will be there. You'll have to knock him out for him not to be there. Some people get hit with a shot and they kind of maybe back up, or they change, or they do different things. Josh Reed will just keep at it and keep at it and keep it. One of the toughest guys on the scene, one of the toughest guys in the world of MMA, one of the most entertaining fighters as well. And Ryan Shelley last time out got Matthew Elliott, who is a hard-nosed wrestler and, one of the most entertaining fight in the world. God almighty, if this one isn't entertaining, I'd be very shocked. The only way this one isn't entertaining if it's over in 10 seconds or something like that, and then it'll be entertaining as well, I'm sure. But I was just going to say, there'll probably be an injury now. I'm fucking after jinxing it with all our fucking injuries. But the undercard is very much a Team KF undercard, I suppose. James Webb on it as well, and the brother Shelley, I suppose, Adam Shelley.
Paddy McCrory versus James Webb. There's a lot of hype locally behind from his gym for Paddy McCrory. He's his training partner Joe McColgan was on the old triangle during the week, and talking to Joe over the years, I've heard him talk about Paddy before, and people go looking at him might say, oh, he's only 2-0, he's beating an 0-1 guy and a 1-1 guy, but like apparently he has a lot of ability, and James Webb obviously is very experienced, fought at the top level in Cage Warriors, but if he takes this lightly, which I don't see him doing, he could be in for trouble here. I mean, I'm really interested to see how Paddy McCarry looks. It's a big step up. Can he rise to the level? Sounds like his the people around him in his camp and all are confident he can. So, this is a really interesting one to see how he looks, and if you could beat James Webb, that'd be absolutely massive to go 3-0 with James Webb on your record. So it's kind of a nothing to win here for James Webb. Really, it's a tough fight to be in. We saw a similar situation with Joe McColgan and Peter Queally, where the records had a bit of a discrepancy and maybe the level of opponents they'd had at that time, but we saw how that fight went as well. So I see this being a really interesting fight, and I'm really interested to see how McCarry looks.
Yeah, it's a big one for James Webb as well, though, because like he was on the verge of the UFC when he was the champion, I suppose, as all Cage Warriors champions were. Obviously, he lost, and then a few injuries, and it's been a tough time over the last while for James Webb. He needs to get back, I suppose, to winning ways and back on a run as well. And it's a massive fight for him to kind of take himself to the next level, I suppose. So very interested in that one. A lot of these undercard fights are like that. I think Harry Hardwick versus Steve Amiable. I've a preview with Brad coming out this week over in Sherdog, and we were talking about that one, and like that's could be a fight of the night one as well, because in that featherweight division, we'll talk about obviously the main event in a second, but like one or both of those guys in the main event could be going to the UFC, and it leaves a spot open. Like, you have an impressive win here. If you're Hardwick or Amiable, you're probably into that spot. And like, you look at some of the other lads on this undercard as well, it's some massive fights from like Sean McCormack coming in fighting Owen Elliott. I think that's at middleweight, if I'm not mistaken. Owen came up from lightweight to welterweight. He was supposed to fight Daniel Skubinski on this. I'll be talking to Owen during the week for SevereMMA, all gone well, and he's just, Owen will take anyone at any time, and Sean McCormack will obviously do the same take in this fight as well. And Adam Shelley to get back to winning ways at 2-2 is massive for him. But on the main card, I suppose, Kenan Cochran against Luke Shanks.
Yeah, I was going to say this is a really, really good fight. Really interested in this one. I love finding out about guys, and the jeopardy is there. And he's fighting a guy, and Luke Shanks coming off 2 finishes in a row over Sam Creasy and Josh Reed. Obviously he's undefeated himself. Cochran is. He's looked really, really good recently. There was a few questions about all his early opponents and all that. He's answered all those questions. He's shown he's at a really good level, and this is a huge fight. I'm really interested to see how it looks. Luke Shanks is a very difficult opponent, but Kenan Cochran looks to be a very difficult matchup for everybody as well. So yeah, I'm really interested in this fight. There's some absolutely brilliant fights on this card.
Yeah, Kenan Cochran, like, he's a guy who talks a lot of shit, and so far he has had a few chances to back it up, and he has, but this is a different sort of level. This is the former champion guy who's been fighting around the top of the, I suppose, 125 division, now up at 135 for a long time, was on the verge of the UFC. I don't know if many people know that, only a few months ago. And now he's back, and he's fighting a guy who's 6-0 on the come up. So like, how's that going to affect Luke Shanks? Is he going to be taking this as disrespect? Is he going to be looking at this as a new move in a new division, or is he going to be looking at this as like, I should be in the UFC. I'm fighting this young lad. I'm just going to make it, make this look easy. And if that's the case, that's probably a bad idea. But I don't think it will be. But Luke Shanks is a very well-rounded fighter. Fights. Fights, I suppose, a smart game plan a lot of time, can wrestle, can strike, can do it all. Whereas Kenan Cochran, he can wrestle, he can strike, and do it all as well. But I love his style. He's a very unusual style of striking. He kind of is very, you look at 125ers and 135ers and you think, these guys move and it's all about athleticism and all of that, and quickness. Whereas Kenan Cochran kind of just stands there in the middle of the cage sometimes and uses his technical striking to beat guys, which I really love. And now he can move when he needs to move as well, but it's a massive step up. He doesn't see it that way. I know I've seen him on Twitter, and I think we'll have have an interview with him as well this week, and he's a very interesting guy to talk to and to listen to as well. This is a massive fight, and if Irish people don't know a lot about Caelan Loughran yet, if he wins this, he's the next guy. You know, if Paul Hughes wins in the main event, the next guy to come through from Ireland is going to be Caelan Loughran, or it might be, you know, Ryan Shelley as well coming through if he beats Josh Reed. These are two massive fights, and the Loughran-Shanks fight is, if Caelan Loughran wins that, he's right in the title mix immediately, you know. Dominic Wooding is gone now. Gone to the PFL after losing, and Martin Yoni is the champion. Like, I could see that fight happening. I absolutely could. But very interested. I talked a bit about Benny Benlactor. Lee Chadwick Buskauskas is an interesting banging fight. James Sheehan, Jamie Richardson, Graham. Like James Sheehan, I'm so glad that Cage Warriors are a promotion that see a guy, his improvements, his ability. Don't just look at the record, don't just look at the early losses, and see what he has done in his career and push him. And he's in the co-main event. He's fighting Jamie Richardson, a guy who's really good and been around for a long time. And you know, if you beat Jamie Richardson, it means something. You know, when you're in a fight with Jamie Richardson in Cage Warriors, it's a big fight. And fair play to Cage Warriors for giving James Sheehan this opportunity, this sort of push in a big fight. And I'm really looking forward to this. It's a very good fight. But James Sheehan, Graham, he's been around for a good while, and he's really shown how good of a fighter he is now.
Yeah, he's really developed. You know, obviously he went in there and lost his pro debut, which isn't ideal, and ended up losing to Ian Gary. You know, and we all know what Ian Gary's gone on to do. He's you know, in the UFC looking great. Since then, you know, James Sheehan seems to have made big strides in between each fight. Like, even, you know, between, what was it, two months between his last two fights, you could see the improvements. And, you know, you could see, or you can hear, even when he's talking, the confidence in his voice. He's really coming into his own in a lot of ways. And as you said, this is a big step up. This is an experienced guy who's been in there with some of the top guys, has some really good wins, like Hacken Foss, Matthew Bonner, people like that. He's gone to decision with Ken Companion. I don't know, I always fucked that up. You know, he's been in there with some really good guys. So this is definitely a step up. But I think James Sheehan, if he shows the kind of the strides in between fights that he's shown recently, and there's no reason to think that he won't, that he you know, I expect him to go in there and make it very difficult, and hopefully get the win. But you know, this could be a fight with close rounds in it as well. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a 29-28 either way. But I'm expecting Sheehan to get it done. But you know, this is definitely a step up in experience and a step up in quality, and it's always interesting to see how these guys react and how they deal with it, and you know, see them in some adversity and see the improvements they've made. So this is another fight that I'm really interested to see, a fight with a lot of jeopardy in my opinion as well. I know obviously that's probably just an Irish thing at the moment, but if James keeps making the improvements between fights that he has been, and keeps growing in confidence, you know, he's definitely a problem for anybody in the division. His style is very difficult to deal with, and his striking is coming into its own now as well. And yeah, just all around, he's developing very nicely, I think. Yeah,
100%. I agree with most of that there. The only thing I wouldn't agree with is I actually don't think it's a step up, because like, he fought Matt Bonner, he's fought Ian Gary, you know, so he's already fought lads who are, you know, better than Jamie Richardson. I don't think, especially Gary,
compared to his you know, his last couple, the last loss,
100%. But he has the experience against very, very good fighters, and I don't think Jamie Richardson, having fought those lads, I don't think will be looked at as a mad step up, if you get me, because sometimes just looking at someone as a big step up is a bigger thing. Now, not to say that Jamie Richardson isn't a tough fight, not to say it won't be close. I agree with you. I think this one has, you know, split decision written all over it, maybe, or a close fight anyway. And I think James Sheehan will get it done. Maybe there's a bit of Irish bias there from us, but I believe it, and I really believe in his ability. And as you said, the improvements between fights are just so evident, you almost couldn't miss them. And you know, fair play to Team Rhino as well. They're an absolutely great gym, and they don't get enough credit. And you know, James Sheehan's ability here, that welterweight division as well. I know there's an interim title coming up. What's Reese doing? I think he got married, and I think he was carrying an injury, and he wants to go to the UFC and different things as well. So, like, if Reese isn't going to be fighting the winner of that interim title, could that next one be James Sheehan if he gets a win here? I think it could be. There's, you know, the Latvian Express lost there recently, and he was kind of the guy I was talking about being the next guy fighting for the title. So maybe James Sheehan could be the guy to take that spot if he wins here. So a massive fight for him. Maybe he'll need a couple more, but a huge fight here for him. It's Matthias Figlak in the against Jimmy Wallhead, I think, for the interim title, isn't it? So that's an interesting fight. I think Figlak versus Sheehan would be a great fight, but Jimmy Wallhead won't be an easy out there. So very interesting.
Decky McAleenan, also important fight for him.
No, that fight's off. That fight's off, unfortunately.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, his opponent got injured, and then Decky, they were looking for an opponent, a replacement, and I think his gym kind of pulled him out because they were kind of saying, "Here, look, Decky, you're carrying an injury yourself. Probably a blessing in disguise, that your opponent pulled out, so you're not going to be back in." Which, is, we talked about injuries. It's a smart move, when your opponent pulls out, it gives you that reason to look, why take the chance of someone on short notice while you're carrying an injury? I think it's probably a smart move.
Especially coming off 2 losses is an important fight to get back on track, and coming in against maybe a different style opponent, carrying an injury, things like that. It definitely is difficult. So yeah, 100%. It probably was the correct decision in the end by the team and himself.
Yeah, without a doubt. So the main event, Paul Hughes versus Jordan Vucinic. God almighty, what a fight this is. Obviously we saw it once before. I actually have it written in my notes here. Hold on, let me look at the date. December 12th 2020. They've both fought twice since. Both fought James Hinden. Both fought Morgan Charrier.
That was 2 years ago. It doesn't seem that long.
It doesn't seem that long. There's a helicopter going behind me. I don't know if anyone can hear it, but anyway, it was a very close fight at the time. I remember we were doing a live Zoom maybe at the time. It was in the middle of the pandemic, wasn't it? And we were watching it as much as we could be while we were drinking cans and talking to people. And I thought at the time Vucinic won. Went back and watched it again, and then thought Hughes won, and then watched it the third time. I'm like, well, that was very fucking close. I'll have to watch it again this week to get a definitive on it. But I think most people coming out of that thought, Paul Hughes might have done enough, but it was a very close fight. Vucinic ended up winning it, and they have obviously both moved on. I think the best thing that's happened to Paul Hughes, and I spoke to Brad about this, and you'll be able to hear the preview coming out this week, as I said, but after that fight, even if I agree, you agree, Graham, everyone out there agrees that maybe Hughes deserved to win the decision. I was very, very close. It wasn't a robbery by any means. But let's say you're looking at it with the attitude like, I was robbed, and the decision went against me, I should have won it, and you live with that for a while. We've seen that with fighters down through the years that their pinned tweet is still a fight from 5 years ago where they got beat and they almost won. It can eat you up inside almost. And I think the fact that it's been 2 years since Hughes has had a couple of fights, he's fought that massive fight against Sharia, won a close decision as well. I think that's actually a really good thing. And this is now fresh, and it's a different fight as well. You don't go in there with maybe like a negative attitude. You're going in there with a positive attitude to win this fight, to get one up on the guy you lost the last time out. I think it actually is a massive benefit for Hughes in terms of just himself and his own mentality. Now, not saying necessarily that'll win him the fight or anything like that, but I really do think that helps. On the fight itself, I haven't watched the first fight. Hughes's grappling was a really big advantage in that, and look, Vucinic has definitely upped his game in that realm since this fight, and it'll be interesting to see if Hughes wrestles more than he did in the first fight. Now, Vucinic did a good job to stop that wrestling after the initial advantage for Hughes, but if he can do that, if it'll work is the second part of that, and if it'll be a massive advantage for him. Then we look at the striking. It was very close the first time Vucinic won the fight because of his striking, I would say, in that first fight. Is that going to be the same? Is it going to be very, very close? Is one of them going to have something new that's going to make it an advantage for them? It's very, very interesting because you look at both of these lads, like Vucinic 9-1, Hughes 8-1. Vucinic 26 years of age, still very, very young. Obviously, Paul Hughes, his age isn't here on Sherdog, unfortunately. But what is he, like 23, 24, 25 maybe, something like that. It's very, very young as well. It's difficult to know. You talked about it there, Graham, with James Sheehan and with other lads as well a while back. It's like, you don't know the changes these guys are making between fights. Never mind 2 years having passed since the last fight. There's a lot of integers that are going to decide this. How do you see it?
Yeah, as you said, you know, both guys have developed, and both guys have also had a lot of time to think about this fight and the game plan, and to think about how they would have done things differently. You know, a lot of the time these fights look very similar when there's a rematch, but there's been a bit of time and a couple of fights in between. So maybe we'll see a little bit of a different fight here, and you know, they've obviously been watching each other's fights really closely as well, and they had obviously 3 really close rounds against each other. I'm interested to see, yeah, like you said, if Paul Hughes is going to kind of go in there and try to grapple more, and you know, I think it would be a good plan, even if the takedowns aren't coming easily, just to make Vucenic think about it. You know, if he can drain his energy and, you know, take the pop out of his punches when they are out of his striking when they are on the feet, that could benefit Hughes as well. Hughes has very, very fast hands, and he's shown power in the past as well. So I think this is a really interesting matchup. I'm really interested to see what adjustments each guy has made. I think I don't know if this is because I've seen much more of Paul Hughes coming up, but I think this is kind of Paul Hughes's fight. I think he's going to win this, but you know, would I be that surprised if all these rounds are really close again and it goes to, you know, 48-47 either way? That's probably what we're looking at. But I think Paul Hughes will have enough to get it done. There's been a lot of talk about whoever wins this is probably going to the UFC. I think, you know, both guys would fit in at the UFC, could beat a lot of guys in their division. But, you know, this is the fight that to get there. Like, this is the biggest fight that Cage Warriors can put on in this division, in my opinion. This is a really big fight. I think not just in terms of, obviously we're Irish and things like that, but I think in terms of quality and in terms of intrigue and all of that stuff, this is just a great main event, and I'm really glad it's 5 rounds. I don't know really whose hands that will play into. I suspect it'll be Paul Hughes. I don't know how you see that, but yeah, either way, I think this is going to be a really, really good fight, and it's going to be some really close rounds. You know, hopefully there's not some controversy at the end. Hopefully there's a clear winner, and you know, maybe if there's a lot of controversy, that might stop whoever wins going to the UFC or things like that. But yeah, I expect fireworks. I expect both guys to have their moments. I expect a really, really competitive fight here, like we saw in the first fight. And yeah, I expect probably Paul Hughes to come out on the end of a really close decision.
That's a great breakdown, to be honest. I have much more to add to this. It's a really, really fun fight. As you said, the 5 rounds as well. You know, it was only 3 rounds the first time. That plays a big factor. I'm not sure who that'll benefit, to be honest. You know, Vucenic is no slouch. Vucenic's cardio is fantastic. You know, I don't think Paul Hughes will have an advantage there. Will he have a disadvantage there? I don't know that either, to be honest. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, there's loads of questions. Like, it's brilliant. I love this Jeopardy questions, high level, up and comers. Like, yeah, this is a brilliant card, and this is a brilliant main event on the top of the card.
100%. And you could definitely argue, I think it is the biggest rematch in Cage Warriors history. The fact that, you know, this has been talked about for 2 years, the fact that there's 2 belts, you know, the interim belt and the belt proper, I suppose. But also, like, is this the best fight in Cage Warriors history? And I'll tell you, I'll propose why. Because 2 years, 2 of the best guys in the division, and they're still in Cage Warriors. Like, usually lads would be gone to the UFC and be signed, and, you know, they'd be away, and we'd miss out on that fight. And the level that they were at that time, and now the level they are now after 2 years of improvement is gargantuan. And like, we know the level that MMA improves on over the years. Like, I don't know, have we ever seen guys this good fight each other at this level? Honestly, I really mean that. I know you're always talking about it, Graham, in soccer, the best teams ever are the best teams now. In MMA, that's tenfold. Like, the best fighters ever are the best fighters now, and the best up-and-comers ever are the best up-and-comers right now. And these are 2 of the best up-and-comers in the world, never mind in just Cage Warriors or anywhere like that. This is a fucking brilliant fight, a really, really great fight. And, you know, to the victor go the spoils, and I can't wait for it. I really, really can't wait for it. It's going to be fantastic. we will leave it there. I'm sure there's so much more to talk about, but we have a Q&A and we have other podcasts to do that. If you have any questions coming out of this, actually, a slight announcement, I suppose. The Q&A is moving to Wednesday for the foreseeable future. It was Tuesday for a long time. Just moving things around a little bit, so things are kind of not cramping up on top of us. Spencer and Harry are going to have their podcast out on the Tuesday morning for Patreon subscribers, and then later on YouTube from going forward for everyone. So we're excited about that. We'll have a hot topic, maybe moving around now more than a set before. We'll obviously have Speaker's Corner, very good Speaker's Corner coming up this Thursday, Graham, talking about PEDs. And I spend a whole 48 minutes giving a pro PEDs argument. It's actually a really, really fun podcast. So tune in for that one. It's really great. Patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast. If you're not signed up there now, it's almost the first of the month. Maybe by the time some of you are listening to this, it'll be the first of the month. Sign up then. If it's the 31st or whatever, don't. Just wait. Wait till tomorrow, sign up, because you'll get charged fucking $2 and we don't want that from anyone. So hold off. Wait till the first of the month. Wait till midnight. Sign up then and get all that lovely, beautiful content out to you. And we'll have loads of interviews coming up this week. Loads of Cage Warriors. Loads of Spencer's doing great work over on YouTube as well, so loads of stuff coming. And if you're listening to this anywhere, click that subscribe button. You want to. You'll get it every Sunday, Monday, or whenever it's out. Also, this podcast might be a bit later as well in future. We're thinking of moving it to maybe later on a Sunday evening, just to make us make our lives a little bit better and maybe be able to sleep. But anyway, it'll be out, and we'll keep the truck running. Graham, any final words before we go? This is a long podcast. Very long podcast, but
it's good to have this Cage Warriors card to look forward to. If some of you listen to this, maybe don't really watch anything outside of the UFC or the UFC and Bellator, and haven't really dipped into Cage Warriors, I'd say this is a good card to start, and you won't be disappointed. Well, you might be. You never know with MMA. On paper, things can look good, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, this is a good one to hang your hat on. Don't blame me if it goes wrong, but I think this is going to be a really, really good card. I'm really selling it here.
You're worse than Arnold Allen as a promoter.
I'm not a cage. I'm not here to promote.
No,
relax over there. Right. Relax over there, Josh.
This card won't disappoint, or maybe it will.
You never know in MMA. These things happen in MMA, but on paper, this is a phenomenal card, and as we talked about, there's loads of jeopardy, loads of questions to be answered. So this should be a really good one. Oh, I was going to slag you about Liverpool, but do you know what? We might leave that till during the week. We might have something special. We won't announce it yet, just in case it doesn't happen. But we'll leave the Saturday after. Leeds marching on together. At least we're qualified for the big fish, the knockout rounds. And Man United qualified for the Europa League next round. How's the Europa League going? It's actually pretty good. It's Garnacho played the other. I was actually thinking the difference between Liverpool and Man United, right? This is the difference between Liverpool and Man United. Garnacho started the other day for Man United, this exciting young winger, and I was like, oh my God, yes, brilliant. I can't wait to see him. When that happens with Liverpool, it's like, oh no, or we're dead, or we've so many injuries, I hate this, it's the worst thing in the world. That's the difference between Man United and Liverpool. We love youth and young players coming through. Liverpool see it as a sign of death. Would you're just in a different position where going for Champions League. I've always been like that. Going for quadruples is how did that work out? There's a different mindset. Yeah, it didn't work out very well, but you won two the small little domestic trophies. Oh, great when Man United were winning provincial cups, you were all over them. So it's not going well in the provincials. The Premier League hasn't gone too well, but hopefully we can win the Champions League, because it looks like we're gonna need to be in the Champions League next season. You want at this fucking rate, losing the Leeds. So in your opinion, Klopp has only won one real trophy in 7 years. That's not great, is it? Yeah, well, if you it's a really it's not great if you look at it just in terms of that, 1 to 7 years. But if you look at Man City and their completely cheated squad, their fake sponsorships coming in again, they get caught, financial fair play, they get let off free. It's just they have fake sponsors so they can pay you a million a week to and Haaland. It's just ridiculous. It's like a guy.
He could have bought 100 million.
He's playing Football Manager and he's editing. He's going into the editor and adding unlimited cash and fake sponsors, and it's just a farce.
Who had a bigger net spend in the summer, Liverpool or Man City?
Man City.
No, they didn't. It was Liverpool by a mile. What are you talking about?
It wasn't. Net spend.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
By an absolute mile. Man City had one
in
of the
terms
lowest
of just transfers, or are you talking wages that they have to pay and signing on fee they pay to Haaland?
How much signing on fees? Will you? I love Liverpool fans
in terms
just
of the money,
changing the debate.
In terms of the money, you can't argue that Man City are.
How much do they cost the rent?
I know you're a Man City fan now.
It's ridiculous, Graham. It's ridiculous. Liverpool fans have net spin. Right, net spin.
You're the one who brought up net spin. I'd never bring up.
You always bring up net spin. What are you talking about? You're still in the fucking Coutinho money.
Go back through any message from me. I only talk about net spend when somebody else brings it up. I don't bring up net spend. I don't care about that stuff as long as it's done legally within the rules of the game. When it's done completely illegally, they're found guilty and then they just bowl their way out of it.
What about Van Dijk? Was that done legally?
I'm talking about money laundering. I'm not talking about the realism of how you get a transfer done. Obviously you can try and sing over instead of debate. But
I'm dead right though, haven't I? Gotcha.
No,
I did catch you.
If you can look at what Man City are doing and think that that's fair, then I don't know what's wrong with you.
It's awful, Graham. It's
having constant fake sponsors just to bring in money to be able to pay £1 million a week to it.
Yeah, not everyone can pay 100 million for a striker.
Not everybody can hack into the database and edit their money.
Oh, hack into the database. Are we talking about Van Dijk again, or did we move on to something else, or what happened there?
Oh, what database was hacked to do with Van Dijk?
I can't remember, but did they hack into something about Van Dijk? Allegedly, I can't remember. Something did happen there, though, didn't it?
No, the Van Dijk thing was that Southampton lodged a complaint about talking without permission and then removed the complaint soon after.
Yeah, I wonder why. Liverpool get a new doctor yet?
It's still the former academy doctor who's in charge. I don't know what the fuck is going on there.
They'll probably bounce back when they get a new doctor. Sure, they'll probably start.
Well, the injuries is fucking ridiculous.
Also, this injury
over the last few years. So hopefully, this doctor that comes in will have. I don't know how much one head doctor is actually.
Garnering protein.
Physios there. I don't know. I think it's just obviousobviously playing 60 odd games last season didn't help, and having a shorter break and stuff like that.
Klopp running them into the ground.
Probably doesn't. Yeah, Klopp running them into the ground obviously doesn't help as well. The squad's getting older. Tried to change the system and it didn't really work because Darwin didn't really perform at the start of the season. Then got sent off and banned, and it just hasn't been working out. But obviously we've qualified for the main knockout stage of the main competition, the big fish, the continental. Like these provisional ones are great and all that, but everybody knows that the provincial big fish. So hopefully we can go on and lift another Champions League. So that's all I've got to cling to at this stage.
Imagine though, it could happen this year. I actually don't think it will, but
like the Jimmy Traore started for Liverpool and we won the Champions League. So
not the Champions League, but I'm saying Man United could finish above Liverpool for 2 out of the last 3 seasons. That's crazy. Like that's absolutely crazy. Anyway, we'll leave that because we'll be talking about soccer all week. But yes, indeed, hard luck anyway, Graham. I feel for you because I know what it feels like.
This quote this musical quote I'm about to read out has more different relevance now than it did before.
We leave the podcast there. Thanks for listening, Graham. Give us your quote.
When your day is not alone, if you feel like letting go, if you think you've had too much of this life, well, hang on.
Hang on.
I'm surprised you didn't come in with hold on.
Everybody cries and everybody hurts.
It's dedicated to all the Liverpool fans who had to watch the Leeds match.
Sometimes. Right, we leave it there, lads. Thanks everyone for listening. See you all. Good luck.